Hey friends, today we're going to be presenting on deterring high school dropout rates amongst Latinx youth. This presentation is presented by Dalton Cooper, Mariana Guzman-Pena, and Stewart for our introduction to macro social work practice class inside the MSSW program at the University of Tennessee. Before we get started, we wanted to address the importance of the grand challenge we're trying to work towards solving for our particular population. We decided to focus on both, number one, ensuring the healthy development for all youth, and number two, working towards achieving equal opportunity and justice for all people. We decided to focus on an issue that addresses both the importance of education and becoming healthy and productive adults and members of society. We know that they're both issues full of societal factors, prejudices, systematic oppressions, but we're excited to focus on a particular population and present on the research we know they could benefit from and eventually reach an intervention that is proven to help their circumstances. The population we decided to focus on for this presentation was Latinx youth growing up or immigrating to the United States, particularly when it comes to their high school graduation and dropout rates. We'll talk about several different components, but we'll later narrow our research and findings specifically to the state of Georgia inside of the United States. Here are some important terms and definitions to keep in mind throughout the presentation to bring a sense of clarity. So, Latinx refers to a person of Latin American origin or descent, used as a gender-neutral or non-binary alternative to Latino or Latina. DACA/Dreamers refers to the deferred action for childhood arrivals. This is an American immigration policy that allows some individuals with unlawful presence in the United States after being brought to the country as children to receive a renewable 2-year period or deferred action from deportation and become eligible for a work permit in the United States. Acculturation is a process of social, psychological, and cultural change that stems from the balancing of two cultures while adapting to the prevailing culture of the society. Hispanic refers to someone relating to Spain or Spanish-speaking countries, especially those of Latin America. Aside from focusing on the grand challenges, presenting the population, and going over some terms and definitions, we wanted to first highlight the importance of education inside the development of youth in general. Why is education important in the first place? Well, education plays a significant role in achieving a good quality of life according to statistics and can be seen as a continuing process of their development so that they can practice and apply their knowledge as preparation in the future. Education is also a major aspect of development of any modern society today, and even in the past, since if there's a deficit of educated people, then society will stop its further progress, whether that is through economic means or just overall growth in general. Like stated before, education plays an incredible part both inside the lives of youth and society in general. But when it comes to Latinx students and high school graduation rates, we're seeing a trend that simply does not make sense. Even though high school graduation rates as a nation have been rising over the course of time inside the United States, as high as 83.2% in 2014 and 15, the high school dropout rates among U.S. Latinx students have fallen to a new low, extending a decades-long decline according to the Census Bureau. This then poses a question as to why this is happening in the first place. What societal pressures are Latinx students in the U.S. facing that is affecting their likeliness to graduate high school and, more importantly, causing them to drop out? Latinx youth, regardless of whether they're considered to be natural-born citizens or immigrants, struggle with several societal pressures and prejudices that play a large role in their futures. Growing and developing in a society where income is correlated with access to education opportunities, Latino students in the United States are showing far different educational outcomes than their white peers and are facing inequitable opportunities that lead to inequitable lifelong outcomes. According to the Population Reference Bureau, Latinx youth currently account for 1/4 of the U.S. youth under the age of 18, and by 2050, they're actually projected to make up nearly 1/3 of the child population. In 2015, more than 3/5 of Latino youth, which was 62%, lived in low-income families with income below 200% of the official poverty line. While this was slightly lower than the share of black children in low-income families, which was 65%, it was twice the proportion for white children, which was 31%. Arkansas and North Carolina had the highest shares of Latino children in low-income families back in 2014 at more than 75% each. Aside from being part of the minority group in the United States, Latinx youth are systematically exposed to several societal factors that affect them on an everyday basis. Like economic factors, more Latino children are living in poverty, 6.1 million in 2010 to be exact, than children of any other racial or ethnic group. This development marks the first time in the U.S. history that the single largest group of poor children and youth is not white. According to the Pew Hispanic Center, 37.3% of poor children were Latino, 30.5% were white, and 26.6% were black. Another aspect of the economic picture for Latino families is that those with immigrant parents face different barriers than Latino families with U.S.-born parents. 2/3, or 4.1 million, of the 6.1 million Latino children living in poverty in 2010 were the children of immigrant parents, while the other third, or 2 million, were children of parents born in the United States. Economic constraints hinder Latino children's academic success, with children of low-income Latino immigrant parents faring even worse than children of low-income Latino parents who were born in the United States. Although the children of U.S.-born Latinx parents still lag behind other ethnic groups academically, they benefit somewhat because their parents are more likely than immigrant parents to speak English and to understand American school systems. Another factor as to why these sorts of rates are being shown specifically for Latino students in the United States has to do also with their language barrier. The challenges that minority youth, including Latinx students who speak little to no English, encounter in their early school years and are many and likely to interfere with their school adjustment. This may result in a disadvantage for social and academic success in the future. Minority students, including Latinx students, who have limited English language skills receive fewer opportunities to learn than students who are fully bilingual or speak only English well. This then limits Latinx students' access to post-secondary education, and those who successfully access it may not be well prepared to perform because of knowledge gaps and lower language skills, which could later cause complications with their high school careers, completing assignments, homeworks, applying for graduation, and even applying for college. Another factor to take into consideration is the term acculturation. Acculturation is another ecological factor that can either enhance or detract from a youth's potential to learn. Acculturation is the process of adopting the cultural traits of social patterns of another group. For Latino immigrant youth, the process of acculturation includes facing the new experiences and challenging events that require immediate attention, such as to how to navigate the school system, communicate with teachers and students, acquire knowledge, and participate in sports and other extracurricular activities. Immigrant youth are often learning a new language, adjusting to a new culture, and experiencing the everyday challenges of growing up. All this can be exhausting. Latino immigrant youth also must often balance familialism, which is the cultural value that emphasizes family closeness and loyalty with conflicting values in the United States. Familialism encourages individual family members to put the needs of the family first, even if this requires making personal sacrifices. This can create stress, particularly for those youth who have family obligations such as language translations or caring for younger siblings. Another Latino cultural value is also known as Marianismo, which emphasizes the self-sacrifice of females and highlights their traditional role as family caregivers. Together, familism and Marianismo are challenging for Latina immigrant girls who feel pressure to fulfill family obligations that may keep them from devoting time to studying and succeeding in school. Latina teenage girls also face the brunt of other behavioral demands stemming from Marianismo and familism, which as refraining from joining in public activities without their parents. This keeps them from participating in after-school activities and field trips, and from socializing with peers. At the same time, while Latinx parents who have limited English skills appear to be less involved with their school, their involvement may be demonstrated in other ways that are less visible to school personnel, such as offering encouragement and guidance to their children, reinforcing the importance of education in the home, and setting examples. Parental involvement may also include exposing youth to the rigors of manual labor as a way of demonstrating the harsh consequences of not succeeding in school. These ways of teaching and guiding can be less visible to school personnel, but are often more feasible for parents with lower educational attainment. The last societal factor that could possibly give us a really good idea of why this is happening towards Latinx students is the idea of prejudice and discrimination in schools towards this specific population. A final important ecological factor lies in this specifically towards Latino immigrants and Latinx students who were born and raised here in the United States. Negative judgments and discriminatory practices affect the well-being of Latinx youth, and being judged or experiencing unfair treatment because of language, culture, or physical features is associated with poor mental health. Studies show that when Latinx students attend schools with few Latino peers, they can feel disconnected from school and are likely to report perceived discrimination by the end of 10th grade. They feel less represented in terms of numbers, less motivated to participate in student activities, and consequently more disconnected with school in general. In addition, researchers sometimes compare the school performance of students of color, including Latinx students, with white students without factoring in the causes of disparities and differences discussed here. White students can be tacitly viewed as intellectually and academically superior to students of color, which can contaminate research results because studies are conducted from a deficit perspective that doesn't acknowledge the racist structures, systems, contexts, policies, and practices that influence the world in which students of color develop and grow. Here we will be assessing the community and community problems related to the Grand Challenge as it relates to the United States and Georgia. These two passages that you're looking at the screen right now is actually a screenshot from a recent article from the AJC, or the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, that was published back in 2015, informing readers about the current graduation rates and dropouts from particular counties. And as you can see, although there has been a significant increase in the amount of students who are graduating from or who recognize themselves as Latinx students inside of the system, there's still a big gap between the nation's overall graduation rate and what specifically is going on inside of Georgia. Although there are several different organizations that work hand in hand with Latinx students here, particularly in the Atlanta area, like HOPE, Hispanic Organization Promoting Education, whom I've had the privilege to be working with for the past 2.5 years, volunteering directly with Latinx students in efforts to raise the graduation rates in Georgia. There's still a really big need for bilingual services when it comes to communicating those ideas and resources to the students' families themselves. The Hispanic dropout rate represented in Figure 1 was 10% in 2016, with about 648,000 Hispanics ages 18 to 24 of more than 6.5 million nationally in that age group not completing high school and not enrolling in high school. Just 5 years later, the rate had been 16%. The overall high school dropout rate in the U.S. has also fallen substantially in the recent decades, matching a record low of 6% in 2016. Hispanics have accounted for much of that decline since 1999, the earliest year for which data on all major races and ethnicities are available. The dropout rate among Hispanics has fallen by 24 percentage points compared to the 9 points among blacks, 3 points among whites, and 2 points among Asians. In Georgia, which is represented in Figure 2, this shows and presents the race ethnicity percentages amongst high school graduates, the number who enrolled in college within 12 months, and the number who completed a degree within 5 years. And as you can see, students who enrolled in college and those who earned degrees within this cohort are proportionally more likely to be white and Asian and less likely to be Hispanic and black when compared to the original high school graduate cohort. So how does this impact the Grand Challenge and create a more just society? So if we were to address these sorts of statistics and present it and match it to the Grand Challenge that we're trying to solve, we would actually see some benefits. And in solving, we would see an incredible amount of being able to reduce these disparities, especially by reducing racial ethnic gaps in poverty and education, will not only improve economic conditions for millions of Latinx parents and children, but will also fuel economic growth by creating a well-qualified workforce after graduation.
So I'm moving on to laws and policies related to our Grand Challenge topic. I'm first going to talk about some federal laws, and then I'm going to go more in depth to Georgia state law and policy. So federal laws. The Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965 was enacted to provide and protect education for disadvantaged youth. This was then replaced by the No Child Left Behind Act, or the NCLB, in 2001. And then the NCLB was then replaced by ESSA, or the Every Student Succeeds Act, in December of 2015. This is taken from the Georgia Partnership for Excellence in Education 2018. The NCLB established two important points pertaining to our Grand Challenge topic. It addressed and created awareness about inequality in funding and quality of education for minority and impoverished students. It also publicized the long-standing white Hispanic achievement gap and shockingly low rate of Latino high school completion. This is taken from Rocha 2018. The NCLB, however, did not improve the overall status of disadvantaged students in the United States due to its high testing requirements. This is taken from CASAS 2018. However, the NCLB also provided funding for bilingual education in English as a second language, or ESL, programs. This is taken from Perez and Morrison 2016. Now moving forward to the Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA. ESSA gave more flexibility and responsibility to state leaders, and it also freed states of federal requirements to formulate their own accountability measures, monitor progress, and decide if and when to intervene in low-performing schools. This is taken from the Georgia Partnership for Excellence in Education 2018. Under ESSA, schools have their own choice to test English language students with the same consistency and process as the NCLB, or to test students in only math and reading. However, this did not change much of the test standard for English language learners, as both the tests administered in math and reading were still administered in standard American English, so low scores could be attributed more to a struggle with language and not necessarily the content. This is taken from Perez and Morrison 2016. ESSA established also that states must take into account English language proficiency for school rating systems, keep track of English language learners with disabilities to ensure their progress, and also call for reporting on long-term English language learners. This is taken from UNITAS 2015. It also created a new system of funds for after-school programs and aimed to establish a family school partnership, which was promoted through statewide family and engagement centers. Under ESSA, Georgia articulates a goal of serving all students, including the 20% who are still not completing high school in Georgia. It also has a plan that is built around cultivating the whole child. Doing so includes accounting for attendance, reporting school climate, and investing in positive behavior interventions and supports within each district and every school. This is taken from the Georgia Partnership for Excellence in Education 2018. However, there are state laws and policies within Georgia that are contradictory to these goals and plan. Georgia's state policy requires more high school graduation credits than over half of other states within the U.S., which could account for low graduation rates. This is taken from the Education Commission of the States in 2019. Georgia is also one of only 3 states with policies that bar undocumented students from enrolling in certain public universities. This is taken from Hooker 2014, and also under the HB 2, which prohibits residents within Georgia unable to prove their lawful permanent residence within the U.S. from receiving public benefits. This extends to adult education. The American Dream and Promise Act of 2019, or the H.R. 6, was passed on June 4, 2019. This provides a permanent legal status for DACA recipients and also provides a pathway to U.S. citizenship. This could potentially change the standard and access to education within Georgia. DACA recipients. This is taken from the American Immigration Council 2019. So before moving forward, I would like to discuss DACA, or Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. Currently within the United States, there are 690,000 recipients of DACA. 9 out of 10 are from Latino countries. This means that 94% of DACA recipients are from Mexico, Central, and South America. The other 6% are from Asia, the Caribbean, Europe, and Africa. Within Georgia, there are currently 21,600 DACA recipients. And so theoretically, this means that 19,440 of those recipients are Latinx. This is taken from Krogstad and Lopez, 2017. So under the SB 492 and the HB 2 within Georgia, undocumented and DACA students are ineligible for public college preparatory courses such as dual enrollment, ineligible for public adult education programs, federal and state financial aid, Hope and ACL scholarships or grants, and they are ineligible for state tuition even if they attended a Georgia school from kindergarten to high school and graduated from that high school. They are also barred from attending University of Georgia, Georgia Tech, and Georgia College and State University, even if they are qualified and are able and willing to pay out-of-state tuition rates under the University of Georgia Board of Regents policy. This is taken from Lee 2017, Hooker 2014, and the U-Lead Network of 2019. Case example. Anna arrived in the U.S. from Mexico when she was 2 years old, just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. She is currently enrolled in school as a DACA student, and she is a junior in a public high school and wants to attend college. She is a gifted student and wants to remain in-state to be close to her parents. She is from a low-income family and lives in a socioeconomically poor neighborhood with her family. She is constantly stressed about her parents as they are not legally in the U.S. and have a hard time communicating and creating a relationship with her school community. The 2 universities she would like to attend, she is barred from due to Georgia's state policy of not admitting undocumented students into certain public universities. The other universities close by are private and expensive, and because of her status, she is worried she will not get enough financial aid to attend these institutions. She is also barred from receiving federal and in-state tuition in Georgia due to her DACA status. Welfare. This is
The Positive Youth Development, or PYD framework, is a strengths-based approach to the empowerment of youth. The PYD framework has 4 core tenets: assets, which entails of any training, formal education, and communicative and cognitive skills that are necessary to achieve the desired outcome; agency, which is the ability to apply assets and have a positive sense of self-identity; contribution to their own and their community's well-being; lastly, being surrounded by an environment that encourages the individual and promotes the social and emotional competence to thrive. However, the PYD framework is effective up to a certain point. When working with clients such as Latinx youth, which belong to a very family-oriented culture, the PYD framework needs to be tailored to include the client's family in all aspects of engagement and change behavior. As mentioned in the previous slide, the inclusion of family is vital to the success rate of Latinx youth. Juntos para una mejor educación, which means Together for a Better Education, is a prime example of how the PYD framework can be culturally tailored to the client's needs. The program works with students on improving their communication and study skills while preparing them and their families for college. The intervention proposed in this presentation is based off of the example Juntos para una Mejor Educación provides. The intervention is designed for Latinx youth who are at a higher risk of dropping out of school and their parents. The intervention program's facilitators are required to be familiar with the Latinx culture in order to facilitate greater communication and engagement in change behavior. Our policy goal is to create a student mentor program much like the one discussed in the last slide. To achieve this goal, approval from the school board to create the program is needed. In order to convince the school board that this is a program they should approve of, the team will collect and present information and statistics on the dropout rate amongst Latinx youth in the state of Georgia. It would also be beneficial to have contacted and gained approval from local colleges and universities to partner with the local high schools for student mentor purposes. In having the approval of said institutions prior to meeting with the board would be more inclined to agree to the program. Our program goal is to increase the high school retention and graduation rates amongst Latinx youth in the state of Georgia. We plan to achieve this goal through the development of a student mentor program tailored to the Latinx culture. After having approval to start the program from the school board, the team needs to build the program's report amongst the community. The plan to achieve this is through social marketing campaigns, training volunteer mentors from partner colleges and universities, creating set times for program sessions at local high schools, and developing methods of data collection to provide the Department of Education and other school administrators for purposes of continual and possibly increased support. Years.
It's taken from UNITA's 2015 as well.
To address the issue presented requires many parties to come together to create a solution. Every tier in the educational hierarchy needs to be involved. Though local school administration and county school boards will be more involved, there is still a need of the involvement of the state and federal departments of education. The state of Georgia's Department of Education will be able to relay the success of the program to the federal department, and the federal department can begin replicating the program in other areas of the country where Latinx youth have a high dropout rate. This will snowball into greater academic retention and achievement amongst the Latinx population, which is rapidly increasing with each year. The creation of the Student Mentor Program requires a great deal of planning and preparing, communication with key parties such as school administration, State Department of Education, and parents. By familiarizing ourselves with the pulse of the Latinx community, being family, and tailoring our program to such core tenets, there is a greater likelihood of students not only participating, but continuing to participate in the program and inevitably school. Moreover, with a great deal of publicity and persistence, the rate of student participation and retention is assumed to rise.
Thank you guys so much for listening to our presentation. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us via email, and the next couple of slides will be our references. Thank you guys again and enjoy your week.